Clark's injury because I feel like it is getting stranger by the day. It has been a month now that Caitlin has been out, and we still don't know when she will be returning to the court, if she will be returning to the court this.
Caitlin Clark just dropped a huge announcement about her return to the league, or at least that's what fans think happened.
So lads, an Indiana Fever reporter just gave an update in a comment section on YouTube about when he expects Caitlin Clark to be back.
The real story? It's far more interesting than a simple comeback update, and it's got the basketball world buzzing. Stick with me, because I've got every detail you're not hearing anywhere else.
It genuinely just seems like something bigger. You got journalists coming out there and saying it's several more weeks. At least several more weeks. At least several more means if it's more than several weeks.
What started as a minor bump in the road has turned into the WNBA's longest-running mystery. Back in mid-July, the Indiana Fever called Caitlin Clark's groin tweak day-to-day. The sports world's favorite way of saying, relax, nothing to see here. Fans took the bait, figuring she'd be back in a week, maybe 2. Except that week turned into a month, and the day-to-day label quietly vanished. Suddenly, Clark's status was upgraded, or rather downgraded, to indefinite. No explanation, no timetable, just a giant question mark big enough to fit the entire Fever fanbase inside. Then ESPN tossed gasoline on the rumor fire. They penciled in August 12th as her big return date, sending excitement through the roof. But reality check? She wasn't even practicing. Not running drills, not doing shoot-arounds, nothing. The so-called comeback date looked more like wishful thinking than inside intel. And then came the real gut punch. Beat reporter Scott Agnes, the guy who basically has season tickets to Fever practices, dropped his version of the truth. Have patience, at least several more weeks. Coming from him, that's not gossip, that's gospel. Here's the kicker. There are only 4 weeks left in the regular season. Several more weeks in that context means Clark wouldn't touch the hardwood until the very end, if at all. The conversation has officially shifted. It's no longer, when will Caitlin Clark return? It's, will Caitlin Clark even play again this season? And with each passing day, that question feels less like speculation and more like a reality Fever fans don't want to face. If you're loving the inside scoop so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way, you'll never miss the real story behind the headlines.
Now, ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlin Clark to get back onto the court, and just yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing, so they changed it from a game time decision to her being out.
Let's talk about the August 12th disaster. ESPN didn't just float that date. They stamped it in bold and ran it across every segment. Analysts hyped it up like a movie premiere. Fans cleared their calendars. Ticket prices spiked overnight. For a hot minute, it felt like the Caitlin Clark comeback was officially on. And then game day happened. Clark went from game time decision to not even close before the pregame shoot-around was done. Coach Stephanie White didn't sugarcoat it either. Caitlin hasn't even been practicing. Translation? ESPN's insider date had about as much accuracy as a 20-year-old weather report. The shift has been dizzying. 1 week, the narrative is, she's almost ready. The next, she's still grinding through solo conditioning drills, not even touching scrimmage work. That's not the look of a player counting down the days to return. That's the slow fade of someone whose season might be slipping away. And the timing? Brutal. The WNBA is in full playoff sprint. Teams are locking in rotations, tightening playbooks, pushing for seeding. Meanwhile, the Fever are caught in a holding pattern, stuck between wait for Caitlin to save us and figure out who we are without her.
And there was a play where I kind of got a steal and we're going in transition and Kelsey Mitchell just takes off down the middle of the floor. And so there's 2 people kind of by her. And I literally go to grab the ball and then I just dribble out. And I literally just start smiling so big. And I look at Steph and I told her after the game.
That better be on film.
Yeah, I'm you don't understand how hard it was for me to not throw that. And she's like, oh, I know, trust me. Everybody was we saw you about to throw that. But I think it's just kind of a learning.
If Caitlin Clark does make it back this season, there's a whole different storm brewing. And it's not about her groin, it's about her game. In a recent chat with Sue Bird, Clark casually dropped a story that says way more than it seems. She got benched after back-to-back turnovers. Then, on a later fast break, she had Kelsey Mitchell wide open, the kind of feed she's made her signature. But she didn't pull the trigger. Why? Because Coach Stephanie White had drilled time and score into her head. On film, the pass was there. The crowd moment was there. But Clark held it in and smiled. And that smile, that's not joy. That's the polite grin of a generational talent trying to squeeze into someone else's system. Clark's magic isn't in running safe, clock-burning sets. It's in the logo threes, the no-look lasers, the split-second chaos that electrifies an arena. Steph Curry did it for the NBA. Clark's doing it for the women's game. But here's the problem. If that style gets coached out of her in favor of safe, predictable possessions, the WNBA isn't just reining in turnovers. They're dimming one of the brightest stars the sport has ever had. Sure, risky plays can backfire, but neutering a player's instincts, that kills the spark completely. Now, the quiet question floating around the Fever locker room is whether this injury break is just about healing her body or also about reshaping her into something safer. And maybe, just maybe, something blander.
So for the Fever, there's been 11 games that Caitlin Clark has missed since that July 15th injury. They have 11 regular season games left before the playoffs, so some time, but not a ton of time to get her back incorporated, and they've stayed consistent that they are not putting a timetable out there in terms of when we could see her back on the floor.
Here's the brutal math staring the Indiana Fever in the face. 11 games left in the regular season. Several more weeks before Caitlin Clark could even sniff game speed. And a team still stuck between thinking they're a playoff dark horse or just another rebuilding project. The front office? They see dollar signs every time Clark's name hits the scoreboard. Packed arenas, national TV coverage, merch sales that look like Christmas came early. She's not just a player, she's an economy. But the coaching staff? Totally different perspective. They see a rookie who's barely been fully healthy all year, who's picked up injuries like bad Jenga pulls, and who'd be diving straight into playoff-level physicality after weeks on the sidelines. That's not just risky. That's the kind of gamble that can end in a sequel injury before the credits even roll. So the Fever's stuck with the ugliest choice in sports. Push Clark back for a late-season playoff cameo at maybe 80%, or shut her down and roll the dice on a healthy, dominant return next year. And make no mistake, either way, they're taking heat. Sit her for the season, fans riot. Rush her back and she tweaks something again, the outrage will be deafening. Somewhere in between lies the so-called smart play. But this is pro sports. Smart doesn't always sell tickets, and sometimes the right decision is the one that keeps the cash flowing, even if the risk is sky high. Quick reminder, if you want the latest updates on Caitlin Clark and the rest of the league without the clickbait fluff, tap subscribe now and join the conversation.
Over the last week or two, and the update as of Monday is that she was able to add more in that regard and doing that full court running as she works to build her endurance after not doing anything for so long. But she has still not returned to practice. She has still not returned to any sort of team activities yet. And I think with her being out for so long at this point, you also have to expect that the ramp-up period for her to get back on the court is going to take longer. As
Caitlin starting full court running last week, has she been able to do anything extra since then or return to practice at all?
No return to practice. She's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all of her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance to do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moves, but not into practice yet, no.
After all, here's the part barely making headlines, and maybe the most dangerous variable in this whole saga: chemistry. The Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever without her, two completely different basketball teams. When Clark's on the floor, the tempo spikes, the offense orbits around her passing lanes, and defenses instantly crank the physicality up to playoff levels. It's chaos in the best possible way, and the Fever lean into it. Without her, it's like someone hit the brakes. They grind through set plays, try to manufacture buckets the old-fashioned way, and lose that unpredictable spark that forces defenses into mistakes. Now toss in hardship signings, lineups shuffled like bad poker hands, and a rookie coach still trying to install her system, and you've got a roster living in a permanent, still figuring it out mode. That's fine in January. In August, that's a death sentence for playoff momentum. And here's the kicker. Bringing Clark back for just the last few games could blow up whatever fragile rhythm they've finally built without her. This isn't pickup ball. You can't just drop your star into the mix and expect instant magic. Cohesion takes weeks, not days, and playoff basketball doesn't wait for anyone to get on the same page. Fans want the fairy tale return. But the reality? Clark's comeback could send the Fever right back into identity crisis mode, just in time for the games that matter most.
wild. Again, her long logo threes, there is a logo on the court at Iowa. All of these things make Caitlin Caitlin, and if you coach those out of her, I just feel like that's just like one of the worst things that you could possibly do to a generational talent who's not only generational because of her skill on the court, but also what she has brought to an entire league, the amount of eyeballs, money, everything that she has brought.
If Caitlin Clark steps back onto a WNBA court this season, buckle up. It's going to be a spectacle. Cameras flashing, crowd on its feet, every dribble, pass, and shot instantly clipped and dissected across social media like it's a forensic case study. For the Fever, it could be the jolt that flips their season, sparking a late surge, maybe even stealing a playoff series. But here's the darker side of that coin. She could just as easily limp off again, her rookie season ending not with fireworks, but with another stint in rehab. And if that happens, the injury narrative follows her straight into the offseason, replacing training plans with medical checklists. The stakes here go way beyond Indiana's win-loss record. Clark isn't just the Fever's headliner, she's the WNBA's marquee attraction. Her deep threes, no-look passes, and fearless swagger have turned casual viewers into diehards and injected serious money into the league's veins. When she's playing, arenas sell out, TV ratings spike, merch flies off shelves. That's why this isn't just about when she returns, but how she returns. Fans aren't showing up to watch a cautious, clock-conscious version of Caitlin Clark. They want the unfiltered version, the one who takes the risky pass, pulls up from the logo, and forces everyone in the building to hold their breath. Because a careful Caitlin Clark might still be good basketball. But the full-throttle version, that's magic. And magic is what the league can't afford to lose. So here we are, waiting, watching, speculating. Will Caitlin Clark make the late season leap back into the fire, or will she pull the plug on 2025 and come back fully loaded next year? One thing's certain, the longer this mystery drags on, the louder the chaos gets. And in the theater of sports, sometimes the suspense is the real show. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more no-nonsense basketball updates, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I've got plenty more stories coming your way.